Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today we're reviewing for you Alex Kidd in Miracle World DX on the Nintendo Switch. This review was originally written by the stupendous Stuart Jip and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. We know we're risking the ire of several hundred very cross SEGA Master System fans by saying this, but we have to be blunt. The original Alex Kidd in Miracle World, whilst inarguably an important and formative classic, is and always has been an exceptionally flawed game. Don't get us wrong, there's plenty to like and a surplus of charm present in its curious world, but mechanically and structurally, there's a lot to be desired. Gotcha traps, luck-based design, miserable key items, and localization issues rendering puzzles near unsolvable. It's issues like these that make it something of a perfect candidate for a remake. Elevate the features that people enjoy, such as the level design, the visuals and the soundtrack, shopping and inventory system, and iron out or fix the ones that they don't. It's a no-brainer. Why, oh why then does Alex Kidd in Miracle World DX seem to double down on the more unfriendly elements of its source material whilst doing almost nothing to update them? It's a truly odd decision that results in an experience that will irritate longtime Miracle World fans whilst doing nothing to bring new people into the fold. Rather than accentuate the negative for now, let's talk about what Alex Kidd DX does well. For a start, it's absolutely gorgeous, with vibrant and enjoyable pixel art bringing the world of Redaxian to life as it's never been seen before. Familiar stages are given a beautiful lick of paint, creating something that's recognizably Miracle World, but with a contemporary look. It may irritate some purists, but there's plenty of character in the reworked sprites, even if it's not quite the same character as the Master System original. The same, unfortunately, can't be said for the new map and character artwork. There's nothing essentially wrong with it, but it's somewhat generic in a way that the sprites certainly aren't. The soundtrack has survived the remake to a point, though it's worth noting that there weren't many songs in the original Master System title anyway. They're all here in new arrangements and with a handful of new songs to boot, which, in a nice touch, have equivalent 8-bit versions available if you switch to Classic Mode mid-game by holding ZR, akin to the Lizard Cube remake of Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap. Said Classic Mode, however, flags up major issues for Styri's stalwarts. It's not right. At a glance, yes, it looks the part, but if you're familiar with Alex Kidd in Miracle World, you'll quickly realize that it's not at all faithful to its game feel. Alex just doesn't feel right moving around, and the sound effects are routinely just wrong. It's bizarre, and we can't imagine why it turned out this way given that M2's Sega Ages version of the same game is absolutely spot on. Let's talk about the aforementioned issues. The most prominent that comes to mind is the retention of rock, paper, scissors as the principal boss battle mechanic. Now we hear you cry, that is exactly what it was in the original game, and you are quite right, it was! And it's still a primarily luck-based system. Pick rock, paper, or scissors, and hope you win. Get it wrong twice, and you die. Life lost. Yes, you can memorize the order of the games, yes, you can locate a telepathy board that lets you read the opponent's minds, but you lose it when you get a game over, and you will get a game over. And every time you do, you'll receive a suggestion to pop into the options menu and give yourself infinite lives, which we have to admit got more and more compelling as the game wore further and further through our patience. But this is just a crutch, it's just papering over the cracks that should have been removed in the development stage. On one hand, it's a little churlish to criticize Miracle World DX for being too much like Miracle World. After all, a good remake should be evocative of that original experience. But we feel that in this case, too little has been updated outside of the aesthetics, resulting in an experience wherein the visuals and the moment-to-moment gameplay feel somewhat mismatched almost all the time, which resulted in us never really feeling comfortable controlling Alex. The changes that have been made feel universally detrimental, though in a way we can sort of see the reasoning behind them even if the final outcome isn't a great one. For example, in the early-ish game, there's a boss battle with an angry bull. In the Master System original, this was simplistic in its execution. You simply punch the bull when it approaches you, causing it to be knocked back before coming at you again, this time a little faster. It's very, very basic, but it's also quite tense and exciting. It's a pure test of reactions and lasts less than 30 seconds. In the remake, it's been changed to a much more traditional sort of thing where you need to jump over the charging bull so that it rams into the opposing wall and becomes stunned, allowing you to attack, and isn't that just worse? For no reason. Other boss battles have been changed to similar, much more routine fights as well. The tension of the forest boss, for example, gone. There are a few new levels added here and there, and they're fine. Mostly, though, they have the presumably unintended effect of reducing the environmental variety. There's now a second, nearly identical volcano stage right before the original volcano stage. A later stage outside Janken's fortress, though, is very cool and a great addition, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. You do unlock a couple of modes on finishing the game, but they're not super interesting. There's a boss rush mode, which inexplicably includes the paper, scissors, rock challenges as well, and a full classic mode, but this, again, and bafflingly, still isn't the original game. We expected it to just be the Master System ROM running in a wrapper, but it's not, and it still doesn't feel quite right. The Sega Ages version is, again, right there on the Switch eShop. We can't pretend that this isn't a disappointment. After promises of updates and improvements to this classic title, what we've got is something that we'd honestly not recommend to either prospective new fans or enthusiasts of the original Alex Kidd. We're inclined to think that this may have been something of a rushed release, but that's pure speculation based on some of the more lax features, such as there's a lot of new dialogue, but most of it is really awkwardly written, and it actually has typos and errors in it still. Alex Kidd in Miracle World DX is not horrible by any means, and you might have fun with it until you run up against its irritating issues, unless you use infinite lives, in which case you'll finish the game in like 2 hours tops. If this was supposed to be Alex Kidd's big comeback, we're sad to say that we don't think we'll be seeing that Alex Kidd High-Tech World remake anytime soon. You've reached the end of the review. That means it's time for Alex's personal thoughts, and well, first of all, it's really weird reading your own name aloud that many times. Regarding the game, though, yeah. I've got to be honest, my experience with it overall can be boiled down to just, I think, frustration more than anything. Like, it's got some really nice things about it. Like, the graphics, they are gorgeous. They are absolutely wonderful, as you've no doubt been able to see just by watching the video. But they don't save it. I mean, there's some areas where the level design is just needlessly cruel, especially given the fact that you have one hit and then you die. I mean, I know that's like part and parcel of Alex Kidd. It wouldn't be the same game if they added a multiple hit system, but you know what? Maybe it shouldn't be the original game. The fact that it's already got the unlockable classic mode in it makes me sort of think that maybe they should have been maybe just a little bit bolder with the changes that they wanted to make. I don't know. I mean, you know, sort of maybe some sort of multi-hit system, or maybe, you know, sort of a different ring that doesn't, you know, give you that sort of projectile attack, but instead actually has, you know, gives you another hit or something. Anything to make the game just a little bit less. It's cruel. And I think that's going to turn people off. And giving people infinite lives doesn't fix that. I kind of like the dialogue at first, but then the more I saw of it, the more it was just kind of, it just feels unnecessary. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't need to know all this, you know, a few lines here and there, absolutely, but sometimes the conversations can be quite a bit of back and forth, and it's just needless, and it kind of just drags things out. And don't even get me started on the bloody paper, scissors, rock boss fights. I mean, they're so stupid. They were stupid on the Master System, and they're doubly stupid now. I'm sure a lot of the game design decisions that were made in the original were due to making the game, you know, harder in order to make it last longer, you know, sort of make people feel like they got more value for money. That was really common back then with the older games, certainly on the NES and, well, and the Master System as well. It would be harder, so you'd have to replay play, and therefore, you know, you play the game longer and feel like you got more bang for your buck. But we're not in that day and age now. Come on. It feels very much like it was pitched and started with the best of intentions, but then they either ran out of money or they ran out of time or something and just had to kind of throw it together like just far too quickly. That is pure speculation, but it just has that feel, you know, it has that feel of a sort of a semi-cheap remake, not a proper remake, not the remake that it kind of deserves. I was really looking forward to this re-release and a chance to actually give the game a proper go, because this is one of those games that is held in high regard, and I think part of that is due to the fact that there weren't that many alternatives, at least on the Master System in 1986. But even then, you know, sort of it's fun. It's a nice, interesting part of Sega's history, but it just has, this isn't the remake it deserved. It's not modern enough. It's not true enough to the original. It's kind of straddling that line where it's not making either party happy. And that is a real shame.